Brussels at Egmont Palace, and we have the pleasure of having with us Mieke Sterken from the International Polar Foundation, and she's going to share with us a bit about her role as a science communicator and education and outreach coordinator, and in general about these polar missions. So I leave floor to Kiran for the first question.
And welcome, Mieke, to our Euromoon Mars channel. And I would like to start with the first question. So, would you like to share your experience as an education and outreach coordinator as you're working in International Polar Foundation? That would be really helpful for all of us.
My pleasure. Thank you for the question. I'm working at the International Polar Foundation since 1 year, which is not so long, but I've worked there 10 years ago already, 3 years, as a junior worker, and I was mainly creating teaching dossiers for teachers, secondary schools mainly, like for students from 12 to 18 years old. The topics were comprising both the technology of the station, but also the polar regions in general and climate change, of course. And I've also been involved in or responsible for creating an exhibition that lasted for 6 months in Brussels, where people could kind of visit the station. The title of the exhibition was Inside the Station, and people would really almost literally go to Antarctica inside to the taxi in Brussels, and then they would enter a door and enter the kind of a replica of the station, and now I'm back to re-establish the educational working of the foundation. So.
That's really nice. Thank you for providing all the insights on the. And I have another question for you. It's very interesting, and it is going to be really helpful to all of our young experts. How do you think it's important to communicate science and communication? Because they're two big words and different words, and if you're doing science, you have to also communicate. How important is it?
The evolution in society is going so quickly, and it's going in a direction where more and more people are having access to information, for instance online, but they're not all having access to correct information. And I think science communication and technological communication at the side of that, but mainly science communication is super important for people to realize what is, simply spoken, what is logic and what isn't logic, to make the difference between interpretations and observations. And in terms of technological education, it's super important that young people and other people as well can understand how things work and actually how reachable it is to be involved in. Like, for instance, in the past few weeks I had a crash course in the electric systems of the station, and I have a geography background. I'm not an engineer, but it's so enriching to realize that you understand something, and that in the end, if you go and study a specific study, you could be able to create a complex system or anything actually. So that's
so
why I think
amazing. Thank you for your answer.
So for the next questions, we just changed a little bit the topic. So as you know, with the Euromoon Mars, we train analog astronauts, so we are in the space field. And I would like to know what are the things that can be recreated and simulated, or recreated, I would say, in the polar regions, and what are the topics that are in common between space and the research in the bases.
Well, one of the things is that in Antarctica you are very remote from other places on Earth, of course, so that's very similar to space. The thing is that in remote places, resources are limited, so in terms of food, energy, communications as well, you are very remote, and you have to find systems that allow you to live without having to import or export a lot of stuff. For instance, waste management is very important, because in Antarctica, we have to export all the waste back. So the more waste we have, the more it's going to cost, and also on an ecological level, it's going to cost more. So that's quite similar with the space situation. So from an engineering point, this is
Resources, let's say.
Resources is,
and how you do the whole process.
It's a big topic, and also the fact that in Antarctica it's always cold, so
just a couple of degrees.
Just a couple of degrees. It's the thing is that what I find interesting about Antarctica is that you can test materials on a very long term, like in space or anywhere else. You can do tests on materials, like how long they have a certain strength, for instance. You can test that in a lab, but when they are in Antarctica, you can leave them there for years, and you can monitor.
It's much more realistic than a lab, for example.
Yeah, especially in terms of deep space explorations. If you have to be in space for 4 years before you arrive somewhere, you have to make sure that the materials are also like keeping their characteristics in the long term. So in that sense, Antarctica could be a very nice analog, a space analog.
And about like psychological effects?
Psychologically, there's also similar. There has been done research in seasonal stations, but also in stations that are occupied the whole year. Because some stations, like Princess Elizabeth, is only occupied 4 months a year in summer, in southern summer. But for instance, the Concordia station, the French station, is they have people staying all year round, and there's a research group from Brussels that has been doing research in Concordia and in PEA, in Princess Elizabeth Antarctic House also, and they are looking at sleep deprivation, for instance, as a result of confinement, but also as a result of the fact that your seasonality changes. And in Concordia is located, I think, at 3,000 and a bit meters height. So the temperatures are much lower than at Princess Elizabeth. And there's also more radiation, there's less oxygen in the air. So these long-term effects on the people who are staying there are very, very interesting for researchers. There's also been medical research where people have tested the level of infection, actually chronic infection in people's bodies.
Winter isolation.
Yeah.
That's super cool. There are lots of things in common with space.
Yeah.
Same extreme environment.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It seems to be even more extreme than the ISS, at some point.
At some point,
because it's even more isolating.
At some point, yes.
On the ISS, they can still go back with an emergency, for example. And there, the isolation is
in winter, it's more difficult indeed. Yeah. Princess Elizabeth is only occupied in summer, so there it's a bit less. But still, it's very, isolated. Yeah.
So one very last question to conclude. So we have this new program, which is called Eurospace Hub, where Euromoon Mars, our organization, is partner, and we got funds from the EU to train some young professionals. And the key point of this project is in collaboration, because we really believe that collaborating with academia and companies is the key to success. So from your own experience, what is the value of collaboration between science and companies and academia?
Yeah. Well, I'll speak from the experience of IPF, the Polar Foundation, actually, which the thing that makes it quite unique and Princess Elizabeth Station unique is that the station has been built with private money originally. So Alain Hubert, the founder of the Polar Foundation, he has inspired companies to contribute, and now the foundation is a private foundation of public utility. It's like an official status in Belgium, and we are constantly working together with the private sector. Sometimes companies are really donating. Instruments or selling instruments to us to install there. For instance, the private company Venturi, who is now testing their first electric vehicle at the station. They are a private company, and we are a public-private partnership. So
you actively look for companies to just on the specific goals of the experiments and missions you have.
Yeah, because you can. sometimes specific companies have been advancing in a specific technology, and then sometimes you need more academic data or research or
it's a learning process. Like everybody has their own skills,
and you need the support of the government as well. So yeah, it just enriches the whole endeavor.
I understand. It's what we also heard a lot today, like how collaboration is like boosting the space research and results. So thank you very much for your time and for this interview.
Thank you for your invitation.
Yes, this is it. Thank you. Thanks.